I think that this is such a practical lesson. And I hiccuped there. Sorry about that. Such a practical lesson to learn to help our families set goals and then meet those goals. Because how many times do we set this goal and we don't meet it? And what that does is it actually creates a negative cycle in our brain telling us that we can't accomplish the goals that we set. So today we're going to break that thinking. That's going to go away. You can set goals and meet them. And let's talk about how to do that.
Hey there, and welcome to the Digital Nomad Family Podcast. This is the place where families who have or want to have a nomadic lifestyle come together to talk about the highs and lows that this life brings. We celebrate the joys and support each other in the hard. So, if you are a digital nomad family or will be in the future, this is the place for you. We're glad you're here.
Hey guys, it's Marissa here, and thank you so much for your patience as I usually post every other Monday, and it's been 3. So if you are following along, I'm a week behind, and I apologize for that. I have lots of excuses, but excuses aren't good, are they? But we are back at it, and I'm excited to do today's episode and for you guys to hear it. I think it's going to be a really fantastic episode. But before we jump into that, I just want to say thank you so much for an amazing start to this podcast. We started in 2022, so we're a newer podcast, and the response has been wonderful. I just really appreciate it. Every time I get a review or a message from someone talking about the podcast, it really just makes me happy to know that there are other people getting something out of this and that they are appreciating it. And so it gives me that motivation to keep going. So thank you so much for that. And kind of on that same topic line, I would love to hear what you guys want to hear about. And I know I talk about leaving reviews and letting me know what you like and that kind of stuff. And it makes me really happy because people have commented a lot how they like the hosting style. And so how it is a more laid back podcast. It is, sometimes I feel like I'm just rambling, but this is my brain and I'm glad you accept it. But I would love to know if there are specific topics that you are like, hey, Marissa, I have a question about this, and could you talk about it? Or we're struggling with this as a full-time traveling family. Can we talk about it? Or this is an area where I'm interested in. Can you focus on that a little bit? And so in the show notes, there is a direct link to email me. If you don't want to go to the show notes and do it, you can just email hello@familyofdashes.com. And it'll go to the same email, but there is a direct link in the show notes that you can just click on it. It'll open up your email, and then you can just send me an email and just say, hey, I would love it if you talked more about this. Here's a question I have. Here's a topic I would like to see focused on. I really want to know what you want to hear about, and I think that would be a great way to do it. So just shoot me an email. It doesn't have to be long. You don't even have to sign your name if you don't want to. Just put the topic in there. Link in the show notes. Also, I want to say thank you to everyone that has left a review and has followed us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or just whatever you listen to podcasts on. Those numbers really do. I know that it feels weird to talk about numbers, and I'm not about to pretend we have huge numbers. We don't, guys. We are a very select few, but I'm okay with that. But leaving a review and following definitely helps other people find us, and it does help just as we continue to grow. Just let me know that, hey, this is a podcast that is worth continuing to do. So I just thank you so much for that. If you haven't left a review or a rating or pushed that subscribe button, I would really, really appreciate it if you did. That would be super helpful, and I would really, really appreciate it. How many times have I said appreciate in the past 4 minutes? Good question. Okay, today's episode is the last part of our Leading Your Family Well series, and this is what it's been leading up to, people. This is it. Today is the day, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you listen, now's the time. Because we are taking the last 3 episodes and we're going to put boots to the ground and say, okay, what are we going to do with this information? We've talked about leading our families well physically, about leading them well in their mental health, and about leading our families well in their spiritual health. And I think that all 3 of those areas are extremely important. This is not me sitting here saying I have it all figured out. I don't. But I think that's the beauty of community, right? We can say, hey, here's what I'm learning. Here's where I think we should be going. Let's do it together. And that's what this episode is all about. So this is going to be an amazing episode that you can share with people. So seriously, don't be afraid to just grab this episode, shoot it over to someone in a text message or a DM or just however you share things. I think that this is such a practical lesson. And I hiccuped there. Sorry about that. Just such a practical lesson to learn to help our families set goals and then meet those goals. Because how many times do we set this goal and we don't meet it? And what that does is it actually creates a negative cycle in our brain telling us that we can't accomplish the goals that we set. So today we're going to break that thinking. That's going to go away. You can set goals and meet them. And let's talk about how to do that. So seriously, an amazing episode to share. They don't even have to listen to the other 3 because we're going to kind of highlight the 3 areas as we walk through today's episode. And what we're going to do is we have created, I say we, it's a universal we. I have created a goal setting guide for you guys. There's a link to it in the show notes. You can get it. And then you can work through this with your families. Okay. Now, anyone can do this. You don't have to be a traveling family. So please don't think, oh, my friend that doesn't travel can't do this. No, this applies to everyone. I'm kind of breaking the rule today, and it's not specific for traveling families. I am going to give some highlights on how traveling families can do this, but you don't have to be a traveling family for today's episode to resonate with you. So that's why I'm saying share it. Pass this one on because I truly believe it's a good one. So let's talk about setting goals. And we're going to focus on 3 areas: physical health, mental health, spiritual health. Now, if you haven't listened to the spiritual health episode and you're thinking, what does that mean? I am a Jesus-loving, Bible-believing Christian. However, if you are not, you can still set goals in your spiritual development. And so don't think that you have to believe what I believe in order to grow spiritually. I think that this is a lesson that can apply to anybody. So I'm just throwing that out there again. I feel like we highlighted that pretty well on the spiritual development podcast episode, but I just want to highlight it again. And I think this is like a rabbit trail really quick, but bear with me, please. I think it's easy to kind of get like, I don't know, weirded out or scared it. I said scared. We're just going to go with it. Scared about talking about what you believe spiritually, because it's like, oh, what if I'm going to offend someone? Well, what if someone doesn't believe what you believe about mental health? There are plenty of people out there that believe anxiety is not a real diagnosis. I have been told that my daughter that has ADHD, that's not a real thing. Physical health. What if one person is able to eat cake and still be super healthy and you can't eat a single, like you look at cake and you're instantly not fitting into your clothing, you feel tired and sluggish. I think we kind of like to put spiritual health or what we believe spiritually into this like weird special box. And it's like, oh, don't touch that one. I think it's just another facet of our expression of humanity. And so don't let it scare you, okay? Like what I believe is what I believe. I'm not going to shove it down anyone's throat. And I think it's beautiful when everyone can do that, right? We can all believe what we believe. We're open to telling each other about it. We're open to asking questions. But at the end of the day, I get to believe what I believe about spiritual, mental, and physical health. And that's why I love this worksheet, because it takes it and it puts it for your family. What does our family believe? So don't think that I'm going to like shove, oh, you have to exercise this many days and only follow this diet. I promise you I'm not going to do that in the physical health. The mental health, I'm not going to make you like meditate for 25 minutes a day. It's not that. And the spiritual health, I'm not going to have you believe what I believe. you create it for yourself. So, okay. Have we talked about that enough, right? Can we just agree to love each other? Okay. So let's dive in. And I'm just going to kind of work through the guide that I have created for you guys. So when you download this, you're going to be like, oh, hey, this sounds familiar. Perfect. Good. That's what I want. So let's jump in. Why should we set goals? And I'm going to say specifically, why should family set goals, and why should traveling families set goals? I think that traveling families, we spend so much time with each other. Just in the act of being a family that is nomadic, we are instantly we spend a lot of time together. However, we might not be intentional about that time. You see the difference? There's a difference between being intentional with the people you spend time with and capitalizing on that time versus, oh, we just happen to be in the same room. And I think everyone can understand what I mean by that. So setting family goals allows us to make sure we're going in the right direction together. This is the way we want our family to go. We're getting there. And then how can they help us? Is there a benefit to setting family goals? Well, one, they make sure that we all get to the same destination in our spiritual, mental, and physical development. But also, I think it helps us as parents capitalize on that time with our kids. It's so easy to be distracted by television, by the tourist attractions that you see, trying new restaurants, meeting new people. It is so easy as a traveling family to be loaded down with so many things you're doing. But sadly, the biggest responsibility we have, which is parents, right? Creating a lifestyle and helping our kids form their worldview, we can miss out on that because we're so busy doing the other stuff. And that's not me saying the other stuff isn't fun. I love trying new restaurants, hanging out with new friends, going to new places, seeing the tourist attractions. I love that. However, it would be so easy for me to kind of pass over the time that I have with my kids. And so this is really just going to help us as parents make sure that our family is intentional in where we're going, not just physically, not just the next city, not just that next passport stamp, but as that idea of who am I as a person, these humans that we are help raising, right? And so that's just a little bit about why we want to set goals. And I do believe that physical, mental, and spiritual health are 3 fantastic ways to look at us as people. And so as we start thinking about setting goals, I want you to know that not all goals are created equal. And so we have to understand some goals have been set well and some goals haven't been set so good. And that's why we want to set SMART goals. SMART. It's an acronym. Okay? SMART goals. If you've heard this before, awesome. Some of the words I might use might be a little bit different than the ones you've heard, but at the end of the day, it still gets us to the same place. Okay? So let's just jump in and say what these stand for. S is for specific. We want to be clear and concise about what our goal is. We want to say exactly what we want to say, what we want to see this goal become. We don't want to say things like, oh, I want to pray or meditate more, or I'm just going to eat healthier, or I'm going to increase my activity, or I'm going to journal more, right? That's not specific. We want a specific goal. We want to say something like, I'm going to meditate for 15 minutes every week for 3 days. Or I am going to eat a salad for lunch 4 days a week. You want a specific thing. Because if you just say eat better, what does that look like? Like, how can you measure that? Which leads us into M, measurable. You have to make sure you know that you're moving forward. And so I'm just going to read what this says because I think it just makes sense. Setting SMART goals means you need to make sure you have a plan in place to measure that you're getting there. You have to have checkpoints in place, and these matter. It could be something like, in 3 weeks, I want to be able to do 3 pull-ups, or in 1 month, I'm going to have 7 Bible verses memorized. For me, that would be 1 because I read the Bible. If you don't read the Bible, ignore that 1 as a thing and create it your own. I'm going to stop giving caveats about spiritual stuff, because what if you can't do pull-ups, right? Like, what if there's always things, right? But having smart goals means we're going to have checkpoints along the way to make sure we're getting to that greater goal, right? So the greater goal might be, I want to develop my faith in a stronger way. Well, that's not specific, and we can't really measure that. So we're going to put these small checkpoints in place, and we're going to say, okay, in 3 weeks, I'm going to have a section of scripture memorized. Every day, I'm going to pray for 10 minutes. In our physical health, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put these smaller checkpoints in place so we can measure to make sure we're getting there. So when your physical health, it might be something like, I'm going to keep a food journal for 2 weeks. I'm not going to change my eating. Just for 2 weeks, I'm going to make a food journal. And that's going to give me a baseline of where I'm starting. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with taking a good look at where you currently are before you then move forward, right? Because if you keep a food journal and you realize, oh, I don't actually eat sugar that much. Well, good for you. But you might have entered a physical goal of being like, I'm going to limit my sugar. But maybe you don't eat sugar that much. Maybe just in your brain, you think you eat it more than you do. Well, creating a food journal could be a great place to start for you. And so that's the M. We want to make sure they're measurable, okay? I am going to move through these kind of quick because I could talk for a long time about each of them, but you guys are really smart. I think you can catch on. The A is for actionable. I love this one because I am so bad at this, because we want to make sure the goal is in our control, okay? Setting goals that are dependent on other people is a mistake. We can only control what we do, okay? Let's say you make a goal of, I'm going to give $5,000 to the next people that ask. Well, that's not a smart goal because they have no clue that you have asked them, that you have that, right? They don't know that they're supposed to ask. So setting a goal that is dependent on another person's actions is not a smart goal. You have to make sure that it is entirely within your capabilities and responsibilities. And so if I say something like, in my mental health, let's say we're looking at the area of mental health right now, and clutter is a big thing for you, right? But you have kids and we travel, and maybe you're in an apartment that's not that big, right? So if you just say, I'm going to eliminate the clutter in our house, that's probably not a smart goal, because that means everyone else would have to make sure that they're not creating clutter. You see how those two don't go hand in hand? Because now you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, there's still clutter in my house, and I set this goal to have no clutter. Yeah, but your 4-year-old has Lego all over the place because they're 4. Like, that's just how it is, right? And so make a goal that is dependent on you, okay? Now, I'm not saying that as a family you can't address the clutter. That's not what I'm saying. But that shouldn't be a personal goal for you, okay? You need to make sure that they are 100% within your wheelhouse to be able to manage, okay? R is for relevant. You need to make sure that the goal applies to where your family is now, okay? Don't look too far into the future when setting goals. There is this saying, I have no clue who said it first or any of the credit, so we're just going to put it out there that someone once said, people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in a lifetime, or something like that. We're just going to go with that one, right? So don't look too far into the future. Think about right now. Think about where your family is right now. think, and by where your family is, I do mean physically, but I also just mean relationally, financially. If you are struggling in your finances, do not set a goal that you're going to go to the gym 3 times a week because you already have a gym membership. Well, if you don't, and you're struggling financially, you're not going to be able to afford a gym membership. If you are struggling financially and you have a gym membership and you haven't been using it, so that now you have to set a goal to go. Well, to be perfectly honest, if you're struggling financially, you and your spouse, or if you're a single person, you might look in the mirror and go, you know what, it's time to cancel that gym membership to help save a little bit of money, which is totally fine, right? I think all of us have looked at those subscriptions that we have and we're like, time to nix this one to help with the budget. Totally fine. But make it relevant to where you are now in all the stages of your life, okay? So we don't want to say, well, I'm going to set a goal for when I have more money, fill in the blank. Or for my family, it's really easy for us to go, okay, well, when we get to the next country. We don't want to do that. We need to think, what does my family need right now? In the location I am, in the relationships I have around me, with the financial resources I have, how am I going to set a goal? It needs to be relevant to where I am right now in this life that I'm living, okay? Don't look too far into the future at all, okay? And then we have time bound. This is, I know I said I really love relevant, and I do, but I think this is my favorite of SMART, time bound, because nothing lasts forever and our goals shouldn't either. We need to put a start date and an end date on our goals, okay? Now, it is totally fine to have this really big goal, okay? And then break it down into smaller things. I think that's probably the best, right? If we go back to having the checkpoints and with being measurable, that's totally fine. It is okay to say, let me give an example. My dad, several years ago now, climbed Mount Rainier. He summited it. It was a really huge goal he had set in his life, and he accomplished it. Well, he didn't just wake up one day and go, oh, next week I'm going to climb Mount Rainier. Like, no, that is not what happened whatsoever. He said, okay, I think he had about 18 months that he was training for it. And so in that 18 months, he gathered all his equipment. He did lots of tests, hikes, and he would put his backpack on and he would go further and further, and he would climb higher. Where he lives, it's not mountains, but higher hills. He lives in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. So you can get some big hills out there where they are. And he would just go bigger and bigger. And so he was able to then take that big goal of summiting Rainier and then break it down. But it had a start and an end date, right? It started when he got all the information. Well, it actually started when you get the idea, right? I have this idea to climb this mountain. And then that's when it starts. And then as you're gathering the information, then the end date can kind of come into existence, right? He contacted the guides, he got the information, found out what he needed to do and about how long it would take, and then when they go, and then you put all that together, and it was like, okay, you're probably going to be climbing this month of this year. Okay, well, that was the end date. We need to do that as well. We need to say, hey, here's the mountain I'm trying to climb. Whether it's in my spiritual health, my mental health, or my physical health, here's the big mountain I want to take. Here's the start. Here's the end. And what checkpoints, how am I going to make this measurable throughout this goal? And I think that's a point that we all forget. I think we just put these goals in our lives like, oh, I'm going to visit all 7 continents in my lifetime. Well, that seems really huge. In your life, you have no idea how long you're going to live. Now, I say that very lightly. Any of us could suffer an accident that makes us not be able to travel anymore or not accomplish the goals that we can't, that we had set, and now we can't accomplish them. So I say that very, very lightly. There have been things in my life that I did have this goal, something happened, and it was wiped off the table. But that doesn't mean that I don't set the goal in the first place. But to just say, oh, I want to visit all 7 continents in my lifetime, that's not a time-bound thing because you don't know how long your life is. But to say something like, oh, by the time I'm 40, I would like to visit 25 countries. Okay, now you have something that you can work towards, right? So a time-bound goal, either time-bound, like in the next 3 weeks, in the next 3 months, something like that can be time-bound, or an age for yourself, or a specific date. Like if there are so many, and I loved this in the, we didn't get into this super deep in the physical health episode. However, I'm going to just throw it in here. There are so many physical challenges around the world that are so cool. And so if you find one of those and you're like, hey, I really want to do this physically challenging thing in this other country, there's races you can run. There's like Ironman competitions all over the world. There's swimming things all over the world. There are so many amazing physical challenges throughout this world that are so, so cool. Even if you're like, oh, I want to do a Via Ferrata for my 45th birthday, right? Something like that. There are so many things like that around the world. And so you can put a date on that, or if it is something like a race or like an organized event, well, you're not setting that date. The organizers set that. So you have to figure out, okay, am I going to do it this year or next year or whatever? But put a time on your goal, a start and an end. And if you do all of those, S, specific, don't be afraid to like name it out very, very clearly, okay? Measurable. What are the small checkpoints you're going to put in place to make sure you are working towards it? Actionable. Is it totally in your control? If it's dependent on other people, it's not a SMART goal. Is it relevant to where you are right now? Physically, mentally, your current health, your current financial status. Is it relevant? And is it time bound? Is there a start and an end to this goal? Because here's the reality. Once we complete this goal, now we've taught our brains, I am the type of person that sets a goal and finishes it. And so let's kind of get into that just a wee little bit, okay? When you set a SMART goal in one of these areas, physical health, mental health, spiritual health, and you feel like, oh man, I've set goals in the past and it hasn't gone well, and I never seem to be able to meet my goals. You have that negative narrative in your head, right? So now you're going to set a SMART goal and you're going to start small, okay? You're going to look at your spiritual, physical, or mental health, and you're going to write out a SMART, a specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound goal, but it's going to be a small one. Okay? It could even be like a week. This week, in the next 7 days, I will fill in the blank. Because what that's going to do is it's going to reprogram your brain. Remember, we talked in the mental health, if you were able to listen to that one, about how our brain it changes over time, right? And so as you are setting these SMART goals and you say, hey, I met that. I had a goal this week to give myself, and maybe let's keep it in mental health perspective right now. I was going to do positive affirmations when you look in the mirror and you say positive things about yourself and the person you are and the person you're going to be, right? If you want to do positive affirmations, there are so many online. And I personally love affirmation statements. They are one of my favorite things. And so you said, I told myself I was going to do positive affirmations every day after I brushed my teeth. I was going to brush my teeth and then look in the mirror with my beautiful smile and give myself these 5 affirmations every night. And I did that this week. Look at me. I accomplished that goal. And then you can set another one and another one. And before you know it, you are a goal setting and meeting amazing human being. And who doesn't want to be that? That is so fantastic. So at the end of this goal setting guide, I give you space to make goals. And as you are making goals, and I know we've talked about this is a family leadership series, this is something to do with your family. And I do think it could be fun, especially in like the spiritual health or the physical health. I think mental health would be a little tricky, but not impossible. Send me an email. Let me know how I'm not seeing this. But I think it would be really easy in spiritual health and physical health to kind of set family goals. However, keeping it actionable, everyone has to set their own way to accomplish it. So maybe you're going to set this big family goal of you're going to run a 5K together. That's a physical goal that you guys have. You're headed to a country and there's a 5K and you really want to do it because you think that'd be a fun experience to run a 5K in another country. Totally do it, right? So that's the big goal. But now everyone has to set their own SMART goal to get there. Like there are 6 people in my family. How in the world could I make it so all 6 of us with different personalities, different physical abilities right now, it would be impossible for me to say, okay, we're going to get up in the morning and we're going to run this much or we're going to do these exercises. No, that's ridiculous. Everyone needs to set their own SMART goals to reach that 5K. I hope that makes sense. I think you guys are smart enough to follow if I dropped any balls there to get it. Same thing with spiritual health. It could be something like we're all going to select a section of scripture and we're going to memorize it. Well, that doesn't mean that you have to all memorize the same section of scripture out of the Bible. It doesn't mean you have to memorize it in the same way. Maybe some people, they're going to read it over and over and over again. And that's how they memorize it. Maybe some people need to write it. Maybe someone's going to record it on their phone and listen to it. Everyone's going to have their own way to reach the goal of memorizing 10 Bible verses. But that is the goal. But everyone gets to set their own SMART goals to reach it. Again, I'm sure there is something with mental health. It's just eluding me right now. So if you have an example of a mental health, like big family goal, let me know, because I'm drawing a blank, but I know there is. That's not me saying that it's not there. It's me saying, my brain isn't working 100% on solving this problem right now. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that. So what is a family goal you could set in the mental health realm, but then everyone could come up with their own way to reach it? So that's it. I believe that this is a very powerful tool, and I'm just really excited. I would love to know what some of your goals are. So after you guys sit down and do this as a family, feel free to email me, reach out to me on social media. Over on Instagram, we're Family of Dashes. One day I'll talk about what that dash means. Everyone's like, what's it mean? One day I'll tell you. And so I would love to know what they are. And really, guys, I do believe this is a powerful tool, this guide, for any family. I know we talked a lot about examples for traveling families. However, that doesn't mean you have to be a traveling family to get something out of this. So I would really appreciate it if you were to share this episode with someone that you believe they can get something out of this for their family. So that is it. I hope that you got something out of it. I got a lot out of this series and talking to the amazing people in the other 3 episodes, and I am really excited about this guide. I think it's going to be a powerful tool for families to sit down, talk about what SMART goals are, and then set them in their families. And what an amazing way to teach our kids that they can be people that set goals in their life and accomplish it. Like, that's the win, right? To help our kids grow into the amazing people that we know that they are capable of being. So that is it. Thank you guys so much. And I really cannot wait to hear what you have to think of this. And as always, I hope you continue to travel joyfully.